Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And this evening, I'm having a conversation with Melanie Cohen from Brooklyn, New York. Good evening.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. Yes. Yes, it's I still can't get used to all these time zones, 10 hours ahead, 9 hours behind. Oh,
Or
yeah.
the fact that in the United States or in 48 of our 50 states, we're still changing the clocks back and forward in spring and summer. So for
Yeah.
people who are like, "Oh, it's 5 months." Well, no, it's not 5 hours for this time of the year. It's six. I can't even.
No, this is
I am in support of our Congress and Senate putting an end to daylight savings time and standard time and all that.
Yes, it's gets very confusing, and of course, when the time changes around the world, it's about 6 weeks, isn't it, for the whole world to change? And yeah, I think I missed just one meeting last time the clocks changed, so it wasn't too bad. Yeah, but it can get very confusing
Yeah.
indeed. But there
It
we go.
can,
That's life, isn't it? And we have to sort of suck it up.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But my question is, what is it you enjoy when you're not working?
Oh, but there are so many things that I
Oh well,
enjoy when I'm not working.
the sound
Okay.
it sounds as if already there's going to be a part two and maybe a part three then.
I might just tell you two things because it is
Okay.
often things that I couple together. I love thrift and vintage shopping.
Oh,
I am a fan of the concept of sustainability. I am a fan of finding the thing that no one else can find, or something that, like, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be able to afford firsthand.
yes.
And the thrill of the find. I always have that thing that I'm looking for that is like my holy grail. Currently, the holy grail is a pair of red cowboy boots, but there's a lot of other things I'm looking for.
Okay.
And we're also huge beer fans, my husband and I in particular. So if we can create a Saturday where there's a little thrifting and then a brewery and then a little more thrifting and another brewery,
Oh, that
best
sounds
day we
good.
can have. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I could do that. Yeah. So you have and the things that you seek in the thrift shops and the vintage shops, do you make things or multi-create things from what you find or what?
That's a really good question because I think when I started thrifting in high school over 40 years ago, and then thrifting wasn't like hot. And at that point in my life, I was a little bit of a punk, and I was looking for things that were, definitely cooler than the kids were getting in like your typical department store. And my goal was always to find like an old vintage bowling shirt or like gas station attendant shirt. And I wanted like the name of the place on the back, and it be from like some small town no one's ever heard of. And I always wanted the name to be like Jim Bob or Jimmy Joe or Mary Lou. And that was like always the thing that I was looking for. Now I'm really looking for clothing, one that is cool and different and vintage, but also just using it as a way to not, like, fall into the trap of fast fashion
Oh, yes, don't get me on
and
that subject.
right. Okay. So I don't want those companies getting all this money.
Yeah.
But I also like, the amount of textiles that go
Mm.
to landfills is
Yeah.
overwhelming, overwhelming. And so I love, and then there's one other piece that I really love, and I love the idea that something is getting a second life,
Well,
and the
absolutely. And the
right.
quality of the clothes that were made back then,
Yes.
they just, well, I mean, they're all supersede everything that's made today. I mean, my late mother, bless her heart, when she started working, she was always very keen to buy clothing that was going to last. So she would invest in clothing that cost a fortune and cost her a lot of salary. Like, I don't, have you heard of Jaeger?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So she would buy items of clothing from Jaeger, and they would last for years and years and years. And so it's you pays your money, you takes your choice. And this
Sure.
fast
You,
fashion is really, it is killing resources and everything, isn't it?
It is. And I think about like my grandmother who made everything
Yep.
that she wore and made everything that my mom and her sisters wore. Whether it was something that was knit or sewed or whatever. And my mother tells stories about my grandmother going to, the fancy department stores in the city, and would bring clothing home, take it apart, create a pattern out of it, put it back together, and then return it, which is just like it's fascinating to me. I never learned knitting, crocheting, needle points. Like I never learned any of that stuff. And there are some regrets about it. But I love when you're in a thrift shop and you can tell that something was handmade versus something that had been purchased at a department store.
Yes, so you can always tell, can't you?
You really can. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My late mum, she was great at sewing, and I think my gran was too, and my great gran. So yes, all had a way of adapting and making things, uh, just like you're saying. That
Right.
to dissect something and then create something.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
it is amazing, isn't it? And I think it's kind of, I think it's beginning to come back. I think a lot of people are very keen on this, make do and mend kind of attitude. You
I
know,
think
but,
they're even I think they're even calling it something now. Like I think they're calling it something like grandma hobbies or granny hobbies.
oh, okay,
Yeah, like it's a thing.
it's a thing. Yes, I'll have to join the thing, because it's fascinating. And if we only realize, a lot of people realize that, fashion is just, it's a 5-minute flit, isn't it? Yet fashion that was in years ago is now coming back twice over. And it just stands to reason, don't chuck your old stuff away. Wait till it comes around a second time, and then you can wear it again.
Well, I think, the question is like, how many years does it have to be since something was new that it's actually vintage or antique? And I think I read at some point like vintage is 50 or more years,
That
and
makes
that
sense. Yes.
antique is like 100 or more years.
Yeah.
But I keep hearing about things being vintage, and they're the things I wore in high school. And I'm like, it has not been 50 years since high school yet. Hold on a minute. You can't call it vintage, just call it old or call it
Oh,
my mom's clothes or whatever you want to call it, but that's not vintage.
yes, yes. Now, come on, get a grip, please. Get your years right.
But I also was a teenager in the 80s, and if there's a decade of clothing that should never come back, I think it was the 80s.
What do you remember of the 80s clothing wise?
A lot of neon, a lot of really big puffy sleeves,
Yes.
right? And huge shoulder
Yeah.
pads, huge shoulder pads. Like those are some of the basics, but I think also like really kind of out there prints. Like
Yeah.
you didn't get, a pretty little flower pattern or just polka dots or just stripes or just plaid. I love patterns. I love herringbone and all those things.
Hmm.
But they would have things that have like 19 different colors and shapes and ooh, yeah.
Oh no. Somebody that I know that lives fairly near me, she went to down to London a short while ago to see an exhibition about Liberty prints,
There
and
you go.
they had the prints going back 100 years, and they that through time, and she said it was absolutely fascinating to see, how it started, and you could tell the different eras of the fabric from the patterns that they used. It must have been fascinating. I haven't been down to see
Yeah,
it, so I can't comment, but it must have been fascinating to actually see the fabrics, because you could tell a lot by seeing when a fabric was made, and the techniques and everything that to create it, and comparing, I suppose, then and now.
for sure.
The how the I don't know. Sometimes I suppose some of these brands, they have not changed the style. They've just the patterns have just changed. So
Right.
it's fascinating telling time in fabric and clothing and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite something. And is there anything else that you enjoy doing, apart from your thrift stores and your few beers,
Um,
perhaps?
I love theater, and I'm actually quite blessed. My older daughter was she received her fine arts degree in acting. In fact, she had
Oh,
studied in London during college at Lambda. Um, but she now works in the theater, and she does, like some house management and front of house stuff. And she works at two different theaters. And they're both theaters where it's not like one big Broadway show. They're smaller theaters, where one of them in particular, the Public Theater, who is responsible for Shakespeare in the Park in New York, their downtown theater has like five different theaters in it. And so we get a lot of opportunity to see theater for free,
oh, I say.
which is it's really a blessing. I swear, she's going to be 29. So I have seen more theater in the last decade than I did in like the four decades before that. I've really like when we think about, wow, college cost us a lot. She's paying us back in
Well,
small
yes,
amounts through tickets. Yeah. But we're
yes.
also seeing a lot of theater that we would not have chosen
Hmm.
on our own, which is also nice because you never know when you're going to get a sweet surprise. There are times where you walk away and say, well, fortunately, those were comped tickets and we didn't pay for them. But I love theater. I really do.
Mm. And I think it's lovely to be able to go to the theatre, and the diversity of different plays is really quite something, isn't it? How
Absolutely.
and you can get play. I mean, I'm not a great theatre goer, but I suppose those people like yourself go fairly regularly. You can tell by the way that the play is written, who it is written by. So you can tell by just not necessarily looking at the program, but you can tell by the way the wording is and all the rest of it, who the writer is, and so on.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. In fact, we saw, some absurdist theater recently, and like you knew that it was Carol Churchill, like you just knew. But I also kind of love living through my daughter's love of theater, like when she studied in England, getting to see Shakespeare performed at the Globe. She cried her eyes out. And then got to see shows on the West End also, but I I gave birth to a Shakespeare nerd. I don't know how it happens, but it did.
Well, I mean, that's brilliant, isn't it? To have that wonder in the family, that
Yeah.
you know that you have a daughter that absolutely eats and lives theatre. I mean, wow.
She does. She does. And I should admit, if her younger sister watches, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. She actually has a part-time job at the theater also. She has a full-time job at high school. And so she's responsible for some of the tickets, but My older daughter's the theater kid, and my younger daughter was the athlete. So lots of soccer or football, a lot of baseball, just a lot of sports in general. I'm still waiting at some point in my life to go with her to see a game at Wembley. Like that to me would be, the ultimate. She's an Everton fan, so she probably would just be happy seeing Everton play. But I want to go to actually on my bucket list would be a concert at Wembley.
Mm. I was lucky enough at the 2012 Olympics to go to the women's match at Wembley. Now, I'd never been to a football match before, and I'm not a football fan particularly necessarily of watching. No disrespect to the men, but it doesn't bode well when you see what happens. Um, but apologies, gents, and all that. But it was very interesting because all the men were around were saying, "Oh, bloody women footballers," blah blah blah. Anyway, 10 minutes into the match, you could sort of hear whispers. Actually, they're not bad. It was very
I
funny.
th Women's sports are super exciting, and I
Mm,
think in particular soccer or, football for you, at least in the US, it has really in the last 20 to 30 years has really like picked up. Like I don't remember soccer at all when I was growing up in the 70s and in the 80s. But boy, it's so big in the US now, and the women's Olympic teams are way better than the men's Olympic teams at least from the US. And I am not going to apologize for saying that because it's true.
I love it. Oh dear. Well, that sort of kind of brings our conversation. Hopefully, there might be maybe one or maybe two more conversations that we could, have on other topics. But for now, I would really love to thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, Melanie. And yes, let's do this again sometime soon.
Thank you, Carolyn. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.